Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, which is all about using social media marketing to maximize the success of your event. I am Rami Merriman, and I'm the Marketing Director here at Hub, and I'll be your moderator today. Our goal is to provide you with valuable information you can use when creating your next event that will help make your life easier, save you time, and get your event marketed faster. Presenting today is Laura Lopez, Senior Community Manager at Social Tables. In her role, she puts the social in Social Tables through generating brand awareness both online and off through social media, content, industry partnerships, and events. She is passionate about bringing together like-minded communities that share a common goal to make each other successful through on and offline engagement. So just a few housekeeping items before we get started. The webinar will be recorded, and both the recording and slides will be made available within a few days. So all registrants will be emailed a link. And then everyone today is going to be muted during the call. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and submit them via the questions box in the GoToMeeting app. And then we'll answer as many as possible at the end of the session. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Laura.
Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for spending the next 60 minutes here with me and Hub. And so I'm going to talk to you all about social media for events, the best practices you can use at pretty much any event. So let's go ahead and get started here. So first off, I'd like to kind of go over today's agenda, what we'll cover. First off, how to target the right audiences for any kind of event you host. It could be, maybe a smaller social event to your annual conference. Whatever the event is, we'll talk a little bit more about how to segment and target those audiences. We'll also talk about the different channels you can use to reach that audience. And last but not least, we'll talk about some of those social media marketing techniques you can use to supercharge ticket sales if that's the goal, or attendance if that's that particular event's goal as well. Whatever the case may be, we'll talk about some techniques you can apply as soon as you're done with this session today. So I like to kick things off with a little introduction. So I'm Laura. I recently have a new title. I'm the marketing content strategist here at Social Tables. So that actually also covers events. So I look at events as in-person content, and then also the online. So I'm the voice of Social Tables. If you are tweeting at me, tweeting at Social Tables, that's usually me on the other line. And so something else I'd like to point out as well is that if you have any questions during today's session, highly recommend using the chat box. We'll actually be monitoring the chat box throughout today's session. So please, any and all questions you have, feel free to use that there. And then also feel free to tweet at me. Again, I'm the voice of Social Tables, so you can tweet me at either Social Tables or my personal Twitter, which is just at Laura Lopez, where the L's are ones there. And then last but not least, you can also email me. I'm at lauraL@socialtables.com if you have a specific situation. And you can also email marketing@hubb.com. And we'll actually have all the contact information towards the end. So, and that's me taking a selfie there. So there we go. Okay, so I want everybody who's logged on right now to tell me one thing here. So tell me, what is your biggest pain point with social media and event marketing? And you can go ahead and use the chat pane or the questions pane. You should see it over there off to the right. So I want to know about what's your biggest pain point, and maybe tell me, why did you log on for today's session? Maybe what is something specific you were looking to learn today? Is it maybe something about, you're hearing a lot about Snapchat, but you honestly have no idea how to incorporate that into your events? Or maybe is it just you're not able to get the attendance that you're looking for your events? Tell me what some of those pain points are, and we'll tackle those throughout today's session. All right. So now that we have some of those ideas, some of those pain points are kind of the front of your mind, let's kind of get started here. So I like to say, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to be that person who is really going to get the word out about your event. And maybe you're an independent planner, maybe you're on the marketing team for a corporation, and you're suddenly charged with event marketing duties. Well, after today's session, you will have a handful of tools and tactics to really make that happen. So let's go into the first, the first area of event marketing. And I like to think of this question framed as a question of, where are my people? Where are the folks that I need to market this event to? And this icon over here in the right-hand side, this came from Smart Insights, which is a digital marketing agency. And you can think of your event as your product. So think about if you were going to launch, think of how iPhones are launched or how Apple launches the iPhone. Think of the segmentation, the targeting, positioning. You can think of the same thing. You treat your event as the same thing. So segmentation, what are the characteristics of each of those markets? So maybe you're an independent planner and you have a conference that you're trying to market. What are the characteristics of that market that that particular conference is trying to reach? What are those characteristics? Is it medical meetings, a medical conference, or is it a music festival? Very, very different segments of the market there. And you can also think of segmentation as a way of it providing a base for targeting. Now, also included with segmentation are things like demographics. So that can be your age, gender, income, marital status, geographical location. Maybe there is an event and it's only happening in New York City. You might be able to pull people from other cities, but that will require a very specific strategy to reach other cities. But maybe it's a localized event and you only want to reach that particular market of New York City planners or Boston planners. And so you can kind of think of it that way. So always think of segmentation also including demographics. Now, segmentation can also include psychographics, which sounds a little complicated, but psychographics is also personality and emotions. These are sort of, you can think of it as the why of the buy. Why would anybody want to attend that event? And this also provides a really good framework for thinking about the rest of your event marketing efforts. What are their lifestyles? What are their hobbies? How do they want to be talked to? Can you use animated GIFs and tweets, or are these folks the type that prefer, a well thought out email? Whatever the case may be, always have segmentation in the back of your mind there. So when it comes to targeting them, now that you have evaluated those segments of your market, select one or more. Again, it could be demographics, it could be, maybe it's millennial planners, event planners in New York City. And then that will, again, provide a framework for how you tackle your event marketing efforts. And then also the positioning as well, if you kind of go down that graph there. And then, like I said, treat your event like a product. If you were launching this event, how would you launch it? Who would you be reaching out to? Are there personas for that particular event? Think about how you would position it and then have that in the back of your mind. So continued on with, where are your people? And today's subject is social media for event marketing. Think about where your audience hangs out online, and do you know where they hang out online? Is it only on Snapchat? Is it versus Instagram? Could it be Facebook versus Twitter? Who knows? Or could it also be LinkedIn groups versus private forums? You need to really do a deep dive in your own social channels. And also, I will kind of interject myself here. With today's session, there's a basic understanding that you are using some form of social media, just in general. So you can actually go into your analytics and take a look and see where people are, how often they're engaging with you on your Facebook posts. Are people leaving comments? Are they liking the posts? How many people is it reaching? And same thing with Twitter. You can see, like I mentioned earlier, general demographics. Are they male versus female? What where is the main city where most of your followers are located. So, use the analytics information and then determine where you have the biggest audience and most active audience too. So you may have, thousands of followers on Facebook, but you may actually have a very, very engaged Instagram where people are constantly commenting, reposting your images, and things like that. So, take a look at your own analytics to figure out, where is my audience? Where should I actually spend my time? And I always get this question whenever somebody asks me about where should I go for event marketing for social media? And it may seem really interesting and alluring to go on to Snapchat, which we'll talk about in a minute. But if you know the demographics of your attendees and they're not really using Snapchat, I mean, I definitely think it's worth it to test it. But if you know for a fact they're not using Snapchat, don't spin your wheels on making a custom filter, again, which we'll talk about. But really just spend as much time where it's worth your time and where it's the highest value. So, and then also another thing to think about is don't forget about your speakers and your event suppliers. Who is your caterer? Who is your venue? Who's your event technology provider? Does your keynote have 2 million followers on Twitter? As well. And I think that even is its own, bringing influencers and speakers and your suppliers to co-brand is kind of its own session, which maybe we can do a future session. But if you do have questions about that, let me know. So, all right, at this point in the session, we are 15 minutes in. At this point, you should know the who of your audience. And I'm going to have one more kind of stop along the way to kind of recenter. So, we're all on the same page. So you should know who your audience is at this point. If you don't, and maybe it'll take a little bit of time to do a deep dive into the demographics or into your social analytics to see I think my audience is mostly female, but you might surprise yourself. It could be 60% male, 40% female. Do a deep dive, but you should have some general idea of who your audience is. Now, let's talk about channels. Which channel should I use? And for the sake of time in today's session, we're going to go into a handful of just the main social networks here. So first one I'd like to start with, Facebook. So never discount your own network and some of the groups that you're a part of. There are tons and tons of event planner groups, interest groups that have cropped up. Some are private, some are public. If you just do a simple search in Facebook, again, maybe you are a medical meeting planner, you can actually find out where do medical meeting planners hang out on Facebook, if they even do. Now, there may be a situation where you're not able to find a Facebook group about medical meeting planners, and that's okay. It just might be telling of the fact that they're not hanging out on Facebook groups. They may be on LinkedIn or another social network. So I would say that these are two main areas where you can start with Facebook, and we will go into a deeper dive, so don't worry. LinkedIn, like I said, your own company page or your own personal network, there's a lot of leverage that you have here, so don't be afraid to call upon your own network and look a little bit deeper into some of the groups that you're trying to reach, your target audience, through LinkedIn. And then Twitter. So a little bit different. So yes, of course, you have Twitter, you have your followers, but also take a look at industry hashtags. There may be specialty hashtags that are sprinkled throughout different blog posts and content that's posted, and just click into it and see what kind of conversations people are having. Who are some of those outspoken voices, and do they have a lot of followers? Are there influencers? Can you tweet at them directly to let them know about your event? Whatever the case may be, definitely do a deep dive on hashtags related to your industry, and then you'll have a better idea of what people are looking for. Do they want, again, I'm using some extreme industries here, but maybe it's music. Maybe you're the planner for South by Southwest. You probably don't need my help on event marketing. You're doing a great job. But are folks talking a lot about music videos? Can you incorporate music video into a tweet that is marketing that particular event with a link to sign up for tickets? There's lots of ways that you can look at the kind of content that's being curated and then pull that into your own posts for your event marketing purposes. Now, Snapchat, here's something that's a little interesting. You can take a look at, if you're standing in a restaurant or you're standing in an arena or a convention center, you can actually see who is tweeting, posting on Snapchat from that particular location. So seeing the kind of content that they're posting, again, will also be indicative of what are people looking for, what do people post about in that particular location. And so that could be an option for you. And then also, if you have your own Snapchat and you have a lot of followers, same thing, you can also kind of take a look and see what they're posting about, duplicate that same kind of content on your own, and then hopefully it resonates with them by seeing relevant content to them. All right, now let's see here. Now let's talk a little bit about metrics. So this is really, really important. This is honestly the end goal, the conversion that you're really looking for from your event marketing efforts. So when it comes to metrics, think about what is it that you really want to measure? What are you setting your goal around? So for example, if your goal is you just want to reach people, maybe it's a humongous event, it's countrywide, you want to reach anyone and everyone, then maybe you should be tracking views and engagement on the posts that you're posting out on social about your event. And then, go from there. And particularly engagement. So you do want people to be interacting with your posts. You want them to be commenting, you want them to be liking it. You need some sort of sign of life. Sometimes reach alone isn't it. You want to go take it a step further and see how much they're engaging. And then oftentimes you'll actually see that, for example, on Facebook Insights, which is free, you have access to it so long as you have a Facebook page. You can actually see reach versus engagement. And then engagement can include clicks on the image, clicks on a link, comments, things like that. Now, if your goal is ticket sales, maybe it's a paid event, maybe it's super exclusive, or it's an event with 20,000 people, then you should really be tracking the conversions. So when somebody clicks on a link, do they eventually, and there's all sorts of link trackers, you can incorporate Google Analytics. Google has its own UTM tracker. You should really be tracking those conversions. Are people clicking over and eventually making a sale? If you have not unleashed Google Analytics onto your event website or wherever it is that you sell tickets from, definitely would recommend that. So you can actually see if somebody abandons a cart. That might be because the sign-up page was just a little too complicated. So if you have any hand in being able to edit how that looks, making it a little bit easier, definitely take a look at that. So, and then last but not least, engagement. If your goal is engagement, you should really be tracking shares, comments, likes, favorites. So, it may just be you want people to engage with the fact that you're even hosting an event. It's a little too early to push ticket sales. So then maybe you should be tracking the engagement there. So there's a different goal for where everybody is, and we call it the funnel. Maybe it's just we're trying to get the brand awareness there. That's top of the funnel. Middle of the funnel, people are aware, they know about your event. And then bottom of the funnel, you want to push them to that conversion. You want them to sign up for your event and show up, be an attendee. All right, so at this point, where we should be at is that you should know the who, the where, and the why for your marketing efforts, your event marketing efforts. Now, all right, you probably want to know some specific tactics. So let's go ahead and do this. So let's talk a little bit about Facebook. So I would say at the absolute basic, you should be creating posts about your event. And this is something that you're probably already doing. But if you need a couple of ideas, I would say link to the event for tickets, really push that sale. But you could also be talking about the speakers. You could post a YouTube video of a previous talk that the keynote speaker has done, and maybe they're just so epic. Maybe you booked Oprah and she did a really great talk on maybe a similar topic. Really try and dangle that carrot in front of them and show them what they would be missing. This is a great way to elicit FOMO, fear of missing out, is by showing off your speakers. Now, also, if you are in a really cool venue, be sure to highlight the venue. Does it have state-of-the-art technology? Is there really good food on site? Whatever the case may be, never discount the venue and your suppliers. And then also for VIPs. This is a great thing for ticketed events where maybe there's particularly specific levels of an event. You can maybe have a basic ticket right up to a VIP ticket that you can buy. Show people what they would be missing if they only got the basic ticket. Will they have access to some of the speakers after the event is over? Will they have access to exclusive content? Whatever it may be sure to show that off in a Facebook post. Pretty easy stuff. Now also, this image I have here to the right, you can actually create a Facebook event and also link to more information, the event website, or tickets. And this is, I feel like a lot of folks forget about using Facebook events because you think, oh, I already have an event website, this would compete with it. But think of it as another iron in your Facebook fire and duplicate all of the information there, name, details, where and when it is, make it public, and then invite your friends. And the more people you can get to even just respond with interested, they don't even necessarily need to say that they're going, increases the chances that it will be seen by even more people. So always be sure to create a Facebook event around it. And like I said, it's not going to be competing with your event website. You can certainly link to your ticket sign up or your event website. And then last but not least, ads. So I don't know if you know this, but you can actually create an ad against your Facebook event. So it's another, again, fire or iron in your Facebook fire there. So one piece of advice is that in order to launch an ad and have it be approved on Facebook, it needs to have less than 10% text. So this is another way that you can pull in imagery from last year's event, the speakers, some of the engagement. Maybe you can test a couple of different ads. You can certainly launch more than one at the same time and then see which one performs better. Is it images of the attendees that really push people to eventually buy a ticket, or is it images of the really awesome speakers that really push people to purchase a ticket? Whatever the case may be, certainly test it and see what works for you. It's going to be a little bit different for every type of event. And then last but not least, also add co-hosts and admins. Now, you might be doing a joint co-branded event with another company. Certainly add them as a co-host to the event and then add them as an admin, because once you do that, they too will be able to invite their friends to that one particular Facebook event and then amplifying the message of that event with their Facebook followers as well. So it's another way to just amplify the message of your event simply by adding, a co-host, and it could be a supplier, it could be your sponsors, it could be anybody who's involved in that event with you. And also, if I'm going really fast, please be sure to stop me, ask a question, use the chat pane if there's anything that you'd like me to kind of do a deep dive into. So, all right, next, let's talk a little bit about Twitter. It's one of my favorite social networks. Now, you should also start an event hashtag early, but I have in parentheses, beware. Main reason being is that you really want to double check that your event hashtag has not been associated with anything that is negative, or maybe there's another event that's 8 times the size of your event, and all of the tweets that are trickling in will just eclipse all of the event tweets from your event. Make sure it's short, sweet, and unique. And that may be a little bit of a challenge, but test out acronyms, test out numbers, phrases, but just always do your research on the front end to make sure that it hasn't been used, or if it has been used, but maybe that was back in 2013, I would say it's safe to say that you can take that up as your event hashtag. And then start incorporating the event hashtag in your pre-event communications. Anytime you post a link to the ticket site, use that event hashtag. It will become learned behavior, and then once you're live at your event, people will pick up that event hashtag and start incorporating it into their own tweets. So be sure to do that. Now, something that I'll point out here on the right, so Social Tables hosted a 5-city roadshow. It's called Fuse, and like I mentioned in bullet point 1, it's actually the event hashtag has since been adopted by other events, but when we picked up the hashtag, it hadn't been used in years. And actually, I'll show you all in a minute, but we had attendees use the hashtag. We talked about it on the presentation. We had sponsors and speakers use it, and we too also used the hashtag in our live tweet. So be sure to do that. And then also on Twitter, very similarly to Facebook, you can post about the event itself or link to the event, kind of self-explanatory. Curate content related to the event. So if there is, like I said, maybe Oprah is your keynote speaker, what is some content that Oprah is talking about on Twitter that would be really interesting to kind of throw in a little mention about your event? Maybe it's about professional development, and it's a professional development conference. That is a great way to curate content Oprah is already pushing out on her own Twitter, and then sort of relating it back to your own event to really entice people to take a look at what your event is all about. And then also something that is kind of cool that not highly used, but great secret weapon is to use Twitter lists to target high value attendees. Maybe it's an influencer, and also to track your speakers. Maybe you really want all of your speakers to post at least 5 times before the event happens. You can actually keep tabs on them. So you can create a Twitter list. It's free. There is, to my knowledge, no limit. Actually, no, I think the limit is 500 lists total, but that's a little out there. But create a Twitter list of attendees who are potentials that you want to tweet at, keep tabs on. Maybe you want to employ them to, maybe there's somebody on Twitter who's doing such a great job of all the pre-event tweets. Maybe you can employ them to do a little bit of live tweeting at the event. Who knows? Lots of uses there. And then also speakers. So Twitter lists, great way to track folks. And then also I would highly recommend you can actually date your Twitter list. So if you want to reuse that for next year to see who, maybe who you want to target for the following year, again, attendees or speakers, sponsors, definitely look backwards when it's time to plan next year's event. And then lastly, so what this is over here is a custom timeline that I created. And you can do that in TweetDeck. I absolutely love this resource. It's free. You can link it directly to your Twitter account. And then you can watch the conversation live as it's happening based upon whatever parameter you set. So maybe you actually want to create a custom timeline for an influencer that you hired for your event and see everything that they're talking about, because you want to be able to retweet them immediately. You can do that, or you can just kind of keep an eye on the hashtag. So that's another great way to do a little bit of custom things there with Twitter. Now, next is LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, as I mentioned with Facebook and Twitter, share the event through your own networks and your status updates. Post a link and maybe post a benefit that somebody would receive by attending your event. Groups, if you're not a part of a handful of groups that relate to that particular event, maybe it's an event topic or a specific industry, very much like Facebook groups, you can actually do a search in LinkedIn and find relevant groups to become a part of, and then start to post and publicize the word about your event. And then here's another creative one, is using InMail to share the event with high value attendees. And again, this could be an influencer, maybe it's a sponsor you really want to get in touch with, who'd be great for your event, or speaker that you're eyeing. InMail, there is going to be a little bit of a cost to it, but if you're willing to kind of test the waters, maybe your community is only on LinkedIn. They're not on Facebook, they're not on Twitter, and they're not on Snapchat. So it might actually behoove you to spend a little bit of, I would look at this as advertising dollars, to using InMail to get in touch with those folks who are a little bit tougher to get in touch with. And then last but not least, I personally love Snapchat. Before the event, what you can do is you can have your speakers or influencers take over your account, or you can just simply have them talk about the event on their own Snapchat accounts. And again, very similarly to how you added that co-host or admin onto Facebook, this is another way to getting access to a whole other host of folks who may not know about your event, and it's working through a speaker or a sponsor or an influencer. Or you can just simply have them take over your account. And then what they can do is that they can post on their own Snapchat and say, hey everyone, I'm Laura Lopez, FYI, I'm going to be taking over the Hub account on Snapchat. Be sure to join me starting Friday at noon, where I'll talk all about the things that I'm excited about this event. So what a great way to link both your influencer, speaker, sponsor, whoever it may be, directly to your event, and then also get the word out to a brand new host of potential attendees. Now, something that you can do closer to the event is creating a geofilter for the event locations. So say, for example, your event is happening at, I don't know, maybe 3 to 5 different locations. It's based on a geofence, which is just a specific area. Maybe it's a set number of blocks where your event is happening, but just know that the bigger the geofence or geographical location where you want that filter to pop up, the more expensive it will be. So maybe you want to create a geofilter for a 1 square block around the a couple of the event locations. Definitely do that, because anytime somebody is even around, they're within a block, once they fire up Snapchat and they see the event hashtag, or I'm sorry, the event filter, they may be swayed to kind of check out, oh, what's the Nike marathon? When can I sign up? Can I sign up right now? Can I just wander into the venue? What have you. So it's another cool way of getting the word out about your event. And then another thing that's kind of cool with geofilters that you can create them on demand. You can create them relatively quickly, is that you can take a look at the analytics so you can tweak it for next year. Maybe creating a geofilter for all 5 locations of your event was a little overkill. Maybe you just want to do it at the main convention center, maybe not where smaller events were happening. Figure out where the Snapchat filter was used the most, and then see, again, tweak and reproduce that for the following year. All right, and so I'd like to have a little quick reality check. Hopefully that wasn't too much information, but I always say that social media is not a silver bullet to magically make attendees appear. And as I mentioned at the beginning, it's your mission. You have many, many options for getting the word out on your event. Lots of ways to test what kind of messaging works and what's really going to resonate with your potential attendees. So, I kind of think of it as Smokey the Bear. Only you can get those attendees to show up there, but it's your responsibility to test a lot of different messaging, images, and different ways to talk to your audience on digital to see what really gets them to buy a ticket or show up to your event. And so with that, I will take any questions that you all have. And again, feel free to use the chat or the questions pane. You should be able to quickly put in a quick little question in there, and I will answer any that you have.
Looks like we do have one that came through that is, once you're at the event, how do you manage all the platforms at one time? So if they have one person and a conference has 10,000 people.
Great question. So what I would do is, and I've seen this happen at events where they're huge, and you can kind of pinpoint who is a person who is kind of wandering around, taking photos and things like that. I would definitely use different tools to, schedule out posts. So for example, you really want to push people to the keynote. There's no reason why that person has to do everything live. They can schedule that out. So anything that you can automate it. And typically I look at that as just posts, cyclical posts or things that are, bound by time. Like I said, keynotes or, when's the opening event happening, things like that. Automate that. And then what that person can do is that they can create, like I showed you all, custom Twitter timelines with the event hashtag. They should have, each of the social networks that matter most to them. Maybe it's Facebook and Twitter up on a tab, and they can flip between the two. And so they can, maybe spend their time being a little bit more reactive versus being reactive to questions that are coming in and posting content. So at least by automating the content posting portion, they can at least, focus on what's coming in live.
Great, that's super helpful. We have another one here. If you don't already have a strong social media presence and there's an event coming up really soon, is it worth it? Is it a good opportunity to start a new platform at that time?
To start a new platform, let me back up. So they have no social presence at all?
They're saying they're only on Facebook.
Only on Facebook. Okay. I would say it doesn't hurt to start now, but just, remind yourself that you may not necessarily get a huge amount of followers in that short bit of time because people don't know that you exist yet. And then on top of that, your ask is to get people to sign up for your event. So I would say it's not worth it completely, but just, manage the expectation that you're not necessarily going to be inundated with, 30,000 people following you, and then, those 30,000 people sign up for your event. Not going to happen, but I think it's a good time to go ahead and sign up for, maybe it's Twitter, maybe it's a LinkedIn page. I always say that there's no better time than the present to go ahead and sign up and get started. So it could definitely provide good fodder for next year for, maybe people end up posting pictures of the event onto your Facebook page. And again, that's great content to use to market your future events. So while I would say, definitely sign up, there's no harm in that, but, just manage the expectation. But I definitely think it's worth it.
Great. And how would you recommend a company balances their normal social media messaging with their event social media marketing?
I would say that definitely start depending on how big the event is, for something like Dreamforce, which is Salesforce's annual user conference, they start the day after the event is over. So, for an event that's that big with so many attendees, you may want to start an entire year out. And then as you get closer to the event date, you may want to bump up your event marketing efforts. And it may come to a situation where, maybe there's 80% of your posts that are all about the event and then only 20% about your company. So, that the frequency of posts regarding your event will ebb and flow, But maybe it's a small event with 100 people. Also know that a majority of tickets are sold the week of the event. So maybe you're not seeing the bump in tickets. Your event has not sold out yet. It might just mean that you need to go full court press the week of your event to really sell it out. And that may mean setting aside normal company posts in favor for the event posts. But I think it just, you'll see what kind of response you'll get, because maybe you start posting 10 times a day on Twitter about your event, which is maybe a little jarring for your followers, because they're only used to seeing 1 to 2 posts from you. That may be overkill, but test the waters and see. No harm done if you test out 10 posts versus 3 posts about your event each day. Test it out, see what works, see what your followers respond to, and then continue to duplicate that.
We've got another one that came in here. Have you found that carousel ads are more effective than ads with one image?
Ooh, carousel ads. We've actually tested both. One image, and again, this is just little social tables. We found that a singular image works really well, but for an event. But when it comes to, we're a tech company, carousel images actually work really well when we're marketing the product. So because you can show different screenshots. So I think that it just comes with a little bit of testing. I would say, why not launch both and see what works? Maybe you want to have an image of a speaker, the venue, and last year's attendees, and maybe that gets a lot of people signing up or clicking over to sign up for your event. Or maybe it's just one of each. You never know, and it might just be interpreted as the freshness. Maybe it's one carousel ad versus 3 individual ones with 3 different images. You never know if maybe the 3 different images perform better because of the newness of the ad. So I really think it depends on your audience, but no harm in testing all of those options. So I think it's gonna be different for everybody.
And final question for the day. Are there any particular tools that you recommend either for publishing or monitoring and analytics?
Yes, so I would definitely take a look at the native analytics panels that are actually built into Facebook and Twitter. You do have access if you have a Facebook page. It just takes a little bit of digging around to find it, but it is there. And then same thing with Twitter. So it's actually in the ad panel. So if you go to, I believe it's ads.twitter.com, you should be able to find it there. And so definitely check that out. When it comes to publishing or scheduling content, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a huge fan of TweetDeck. So that is it's a free tool. It's Twitter only. So you can schedule content, you can create custom timelines, you can, monitor a hashtag. So for that person who is, a one-person show managing all of the marketing at an event, that's probably a great option for you. And then also Hootsuite, huge fan of Hootsuite. Also a fan of Edgar, and Edgar is more of an evergreen scheduling tool. We use it here at Social Tables. So maybe you want to start an entire year out talking about your event. It's a great way to schedule it out, and it will continue to repost throughout the year. And you can set an end date for it too. And then when it comes to analytics panels for something like Instagram, there's just so many apps out there to take a look at. Honestly, if you go into the App Store, there's tons. So there's one called Analytics for Instagram is a good one. They have different follower trackers that you can take a look at. Iconosquare is another one that we actually use here at Social Tables. So tons. A lot of them are free. Sometimes it's limited up to a point. They may limit the date range, for example, but if you have a huge following on Instagram, it might be worth it to make a small investment in analytics to see how your followers are engaging with your posts. So cool. Well, that was a great little run of questions there, but I'll actually leave you all with a couple of things here. So if you need more resources, I have a couple of blog posts that I've written about event marketing, co-branding tips. So if you would like to get started with co-branding with maybe event vendors, suppliers, your venue, a couple of tips there. A couple of ways that you're maybe not using social media for your event marketing efforts. That's another great post there. And then also if you want to turn your attendees into marketing minions, and we use the word minions because the Minions movie had just come out recently when we wrote that, but also all 4 great blog posts. And I think the marketing team at Hub, I think you all may be able to share that with everybody after the fact. And then also, just want to say thanks for logging on. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email, tweet, you could call us. Any of those outlets are ways to get in touch with us. And then last but not least, a huge thank you to Hub for hosting me. And if you want more information about Hub, great piece of event technology, just head to hubb.com.
Thank you so much, Laura. Just one quick correction on that. It's actually hubb.me where you guys want to go. Yes.
Sorry about that. Hubb.me.
And our blog is also full of all kinds of great best practices around all different topics related to event and conference planning. So definitely take a look at that. Feel free to subscribe. And with that, I just want to thank everyone. Thank you, Laura. That was amazing, chock full of really great content. And thank you to everyone who stayed and joined. And feel free to send either of us any questions if you have those. And as a reminder, the recording and slides will definitely be sent out to you guys in a couple days. And with that, I want to say thanks and have a great day.